Hey, I'm Bellypan with Artec Industries, and today we are installing the 5th Gen 4Runner belly pan. The first step is to make sure you got everything in the box. When doing so, run through, check our diagram, make sure you received all the hardware, all the brackets, and the 2 main skids. Before we start the install on our belly pan, you want to make sure you remove the factory skids off your 4Runner and the factory support brackets. It's really easy to do. On this 4Runner, they've already been removed and we don't have them to show taking them off, but it's fairly easy just to remove the factory skid and the factory brackets. There's tons of YouTube videos you can check out to see how to do that, but we're going to jump straight into the belly pan install and how to get our belly pan onto the 4Runner. First step, loosely install the oil pan skid bracket onto the front crossmember that holds the steering rack. You want to loosely do that with 2 M8 bolts. The second half of step 1, we're going to install the nut strip on top of the crossmember and use the 3-inch half-inch bolts to go through the bottom bracket, through the crossmember, and into the nut strip. All right, you want to leave this slightly loose. The easiest way to line everything up for the next step is you want to push this bracket all the way back towards the back of the vehicle until you hear it click and you can't push it back any further. Step 2, we're going to install the oil pan skid using 2 countersinks. We're going to install the 2 countersinks right here and right here. We're going to go through there into the bottom of the bracket. Now that we got the oil pan skid on, we're gonna wanna make sure it's fully aligned and push it back as far as possible. And for step 3, we're gonna tighten up those 2 M8 bolts through these 2 holes right here. So step 3, we're gonna tighten up the bolts on the front bracket. We're gonna tighten up the M8 bolts for these 2 holes. Then we're gonna pull the oil pan skid off and tighten up the 2 half-inch bolts. Let's get started. Step 4, we're going to install the long nut strip on top of the radiator crossmember. Easiest way to do this is to line up the PEM nuts with the correct holes they go in. Once you have that lined up, come in from behind and slip it up on top. Then we're going to reinstall the front oil pan skid. First, we're going to line up the PEM nuts with the correct holes. Make sure they line up. Now we're going to slip the nut strip on top of the crossmember in between the foam and the crossmember. If you can look through and see the PEM nuts, you've got it in the correct place. If you can't see the PEM nuts, you're in trouble. Now we're going to take the 4 countersink washers that you got and the 4 2-inch countersink bolts and install them on the front of the oil pan skid. You want to loosely install these. You don't want to fully tighten them down until you have all of them in. We're just going to lightly cinch these down until we've got the full belly pan installed, and we can come back and fully tighten them down. Last part of step 4 is to install the oil filter drain skid plate right here. Look at that beauty. Step 5, we're going to install the short nut strip on top of the back of the oil crossmember using 2 4-inch countersink bolts. We don't want to fully tighten this down. We want to leave it a little bit loose until we get the back skid plate on, because we're going to put the other 2 in and we want to suck it all up as one. All right, on to step. Step 6, we're going to install the transmission crossmember bracket. To install that bracket, we're going to use our 4 9/16 bolts and nuts to go through the transmission crossmember. Here's a little tip to make this go a little bit easier for you. Make sure this bracket is centered on the transmission crossmember. It'll help aligning back the transmission skid plate. But just center it the best you can and you should have no issues. Done, son. Step 7, we're gonna install the rear Artec crossmember in the back of the frame using this hardware. You have the 2 frame inserts and your 2 1/2-inch bolts with washers. So we're gonna take the first insert and install it right here between the 2 brake lines. Drop it down, and you can see the PEM nut shining right through there. On the passenger side, there's usually a plug right here that you have to pop out. It's already been popped out, so all we have to do is insert the other frame strip. Now all we have to do is hold the crossmember up and get the 2 1/2-inch bolts in. Here's a little tech tip. It makes it a lot easier to do this. If you have a long extension and a short 3/4-inch socket, just set your first 1/2-inch bolt in there like that. Grab your crossmember. Bam, it's like magic, baby. We still want to leave the rear Artec crossmember a little bit loose until we get the transmission skid plate on the vehicle and all those bolts tightened up. We'll save those last 2 1/2-inch bolts. Those will be the last bolts you bolt up to finish the install. Let's grab this oil pan skid and get it on. Step 8, we're going to install a transmission and transfer case skid plate. So grab some of the countersinks. Need 2, 3, 4, however many you want to grab and put in your pocket. We're going to lift the transmission skid up and get some of these countersinks in to hold it up. Let it rip.
That sounded cool on the mic.
Yeah, don't drop it on your camera guy. Or yourself. Steel's for poor people. So all the countersinks, you're going to want to screw them in, not tight, just until the head gets semi-flush, like that. But you want to leave them a little bit loose, and I'll show you why in just a second. This is a tech tip for if you're having alignment issues up front, right along this seam. If you did have an issue, here's how you correct it. What you're going to want to do is get your ratchet straps, and you're going to suck the back pan forward. Strap it like that. Once you do that, it should suck this so it's perfectly aligned with the front oil pan skid, and you go back through and tighten them all up, which is what we're going to do right now. Step 9, we're going to install the oil pan drain door right there. Step 10, we have the 2 small nut strip tabs that tie the front oil pan skid to the transmission skid. We insert them on the side here using our button head bolt. And a part of step 10, we're gonna finish tighten up these 2 1/2-inch bolts on the rear Artec crossmember. And then for the final part of step 10, we're gonna tighten up these front countersinks on the very front of the oil pan skid plate. Let's get this thing done. You've just finished the installation of the world's strongest 5th Gen 4Runner belly pan. Go out and enjoy it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on our videos. If you have any questions, leave them below or send an email to sales@artecindustries.com or feel free to give our tech department a phone call.